Hello, thank you for joining Judy, Jewett, and Cheryl Bassett today. 5 tips to strengthen families during COVID-19. This segment is to help parents to be and to stay empowered during some of our most trying times at this time. I'm going to be using StreamYard, so if you happen to see that while you're watching the live, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name. And that would be StreamYard.com Facebook. And that way we can see we can see who you are, and we can see your comments, and we can say hello. So through the turmoil and chaos in the world today, the real healing method is a way to stay grounded, fearless, and centered in your life. I am a spiritual life coach, Judy Jewett. I am the founder of Real Healing Method. As we become more aware, our senses are heightened to see and know so much more. We have to adjust and recenter ourselves with the daily changes in the world. We are all being challenged every day from the media, the government, community, country, and global influencing, not knowing who to trust and not know what to trust. So with that, I hope today you will gain some knowledge and freedom and be able to feel empowered. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Cheryl Bassett is a #1 international best-selling author. She's award-winning creator of the Unstoppable Family Meeting Toolkit. You will learn about this today. Make sure that you share our video with anyone that has a family. And you, if you're a family member, share it with your family, because today you're going to learn some really valuable tips. She's also the host of the Kitchen Table Conversation Show. She's inspired by her own family's journey. Cheryl's work for creating unshakable, unbreakable families is recognized as one of the top 5 next best brilliant ideas for humanity. So with that being said, just so you know, you can go to kitchentableconversations.com with the number 2. And if you want to submit an idea to her show, please go there. So with that being said, I want to welcome you, Cheryl.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much for joining today.
Yes. Well, we are in some interesting times. I read a quote the other day that says, something extraordinary can happen to anyone at any time, but it's truly extraordinary when something happens to everyone at the same time. And for anyone who didn't realize that we're all connected on this planet before, I would think there has to be that awareness now.
Absolutely. And we think, well, how are we connected when we're hating or we're angry and we're seeing things happen? The truth is we all are connected. That is true. So this is our challenge, is how we can maneuver through the world and find more balance and love and connection.
Yes.
Yeah. So help me understand. I mean, I know that, you've been a coach for a while, and on your journey, share a little bit about your journey in your own family dynamics that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I always get excited to be able to share this. It's sort of funny how it started, because my sons came bounding home from school, and and we need this and we need that, and I had just spent the whole morning trying to figure out the finances, which I think is common in a lot of families, and especially now as a lot of families are wrapping around even new finances and trying to figure it out. But I had spent the whole morning, and I had just gotten to that point where I'm like, okay, we just have enough money to make it to the end of the month. And then they came home and they're like, I need socks, I need this, I need shoes, and they're with sports and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there adding it up in my head and going, oh my gosh, I hadn't planned for that. And then Brian, he was probably, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 at the time, says, oh yeah, and by the way, I need a tube of chapstick. And yep, it was the tube of chapstick that pushed me over the edge and into this really bad mom moment, which fortunately I didn't have all the time. So it sort of left my kids speechless. But that night I thought, man, we need to get on the same page. And so we had what I would call our first official family meeting. And of course I thought, Judy, that I was going to come and impart all my wisdom onto my children and just straighten them out, right? Because they're going to be on my page. But what I found out is that they really wanted to be a part of the solution. And what unfolded from that was this beautiful journey that we went on together. And if I were to sort of flash forward and, through all the things that we did, which really brought us together and I think made us a team, by the time we actually did get to what I would call more of a crisis in our life, which a lot of families are now facing in some ways for the first time, when we got to that crisis, which was we lost our home, I remember the day, and my boys are much older now, but I remember saying to them, look, we're going to have to move. And nobody was mad. Nobody was angry. Nobody was blaming. Their first words out of their mouth to me was, well, this is just a house, Mom, and we're a family. What do you need us to do? And it was in that moment I realized how powerful that connection we had become, because it's kind of like we all have 911s in our life. I'm not what I share is really not the 911, right? If you're in the middle, like if your house is on fire, like that's not time to go sit and have a family meeting and connect, right? But if you can find those connections, create that solid foundation with your family before you have the crisis, then when it comes, you can get through it and have a trusting knowledge that you're going to be there and for each other through it and as you come out the other side of it. So I feel like right now the families that were a little more prepared for this have done that. On the other hand, some are figuring it out right now, and are looking for those solutions in the moment that we're in to create that foundation of trust that I think is just critical during this point in time.
That is great. Thank you. That's very heartfelt of what your journey has been, and having the family conversations and communication. I think a lot of families are missing that.
Yes.
I do know. I know they are, and they're missing. They're just missing that. And parents, it's no different from our generation and our parents. My parents didn't do that. They were too busy raising kids, 7 children.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's what you're talking about is very important, and yet it's very basic, a basic foundation that can last a lifetime, and so it's beautiful.
Right. I mean, to your point, just on that, when I got the award for the next best brilliant idea for humanity, I sometimes chuckle at that, because my brilliant idea is that families should actually sit down and have a conversation, and it's like, it should just be something that we do. Now, and we'll talk more about this, but I do get to wrap that connection around 4 gifts that I share, and we don't have to even cover all 4 of those gifts, but the point was we did create a foundation of how it is we connected as a family, and that foundation has allowed us to then flourish and stay together through thick and thin and become a team. So I think it's finding what works for your family. Of course, I think the 4 gifts are very profound, simple but profound, and so obviously that's what I love to get out and be able to share about. So
that's great. And I can tell you my one experience is that when I was I was a teenager, and I had gone to church camp, and we would have these groups of people just sitting around and talking. And I had never experienced that before, that somebody really cared. And it was so hard to open my mouth and so hard to say something. And this was the Episcopal Church in Ohio. And then I went from that into being a church counselor when I was in college. And it changed my life. One of the first times it changed my life, because we sat around every day, a group of people. And we lived in tents. This was not a hotel setting. We were in tents. But every day around the campfire, that's what we did, is we shared our feelings and our thoughts, and we became problem solvers. And so absolutely, that is huge. And so you're doing something very similar, with sitting around the table, so to speak, being able to communicate and to share and know everybody, and what everybody has to say is important. It's all very important in what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell a little bit. So you have the 4 pillars, but we're going to talk about 5 tips. We're going to talk about 5 tips today. So go ahead and share the first tip.
Well, we're really sort of talking about the first one, which is to communicate and build that foundation of trust. And I love to do this little analogy where if everybody were to stand up, and I won't do it right now because then you'll see that maybe actually my pants do match today, so that's good. But
if I don't have dress pants on, no.
Okay, if everybody were to stand up and then sit down in a chair, even with some gusto, right? We would all have a confidence that that chair would be there to support us, right? We wouldn't question like, wow, I wonder who made this, or I wonder if, it's going to hold me or whatever. We would just trust that that chair is there. And that same level of trust you have when you sit in that chair is the exact same level of trust that you should have in your family, that they will be there for you to support you. And I think if anything short of that, right, then obviously there's this room for improvement, but that's the level of trust that needs to be there. And that comes from learning how to step into that communication in a really authentic way and in a very transparent way. I always say, like, if you feel that kids should be seen and not heard, you're probably going to hate what I share, right? But if you feel like that your children have a voice and deserve to feel like it's heard and respected, not that every idea, in fact, that's one of the gifts that I share, is that, everybody's idea deserves to be heard. Doesn't mean that every idea is a good idea, but sometimes you can build on an idea too and make it amazing. So that communication and having that foundation of trust is really the most important thing. My husband was a chiropractor, and he used to have up on his thing, it said, almost every problem in life can be solved with three things: diet, exercise, and communication. and I'm sure it's not 100%, but it's pretty darn close. Because that communication is so important. And like you, I grew up in a really, not all bad, but crazy nutcase family a little bit, right? And so we didn't have that level of communication. In fact, some of our communication was over the top, although I will take over the top communication before I'll take no communication, right? Because at least there's something to work from. My family probably over communicated, if anything, and got loud and whatever. But because of that experience, just as I'm sure is maybe some of what drives you to do your work, because of that experience, we either get to repeat it or we get to say, you know what, I want to do it differently. So when I have my kids, I'm like, I wanted to have that different relationship with them. So we sat down and started really communicating. And honestly, I thought I was going to just, like I said, impart all of my stuff onto them. The truth was they had a lot to share and I had a lot to learn. And we went through this together, and we became, advocates for one another and supporters of one another, and really understanding that. So that would be the first thing I would say. And here's a fun way you can do it to get started and to kind of bring fun to it. And I will say this too, when we used to have our family meetings, my oldest son, Brian, he would roll his eyes like, oh, here comes the family meeting again. And I'd be like, that's fine. Go ahead, roll your eyes. And when you're done, get your butt to the table, because we're going to do this anyway. But one fun thing you could do to get it started, especially if you've not done a lot of this, is to have what I call a no duck quacking session. And it actually taps into one of the gifts, because we have the gift of respect, but we have these little ducks. And they actually squeak, right? They don't quack. But the concept is the duck is the idea. And if you have an idea, you can complement it, build on it. You can seek to understand it, ask questions about it. But what you cannot do is shoot that duck. And of course, that's why we say quack, because shooting is not nice.
Well, give me an example of what you're talking about, what you would do.
So a no duck quacking session means everybody gets to share ideas. There are no bad ideas. Everybody gets to feel heard. And I'll give you a beautiful example. So one day David said, I think that we should put a helicopter landing pad on our roof. Now, mind you, like, that's a crazy idea. But Brian and I said, okay. So Brian, though, immediately said, David, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. And of course, David got to quack Brian, right? But then what unfolded was this beautiful conversation about, well, why would you want to have a helicopter landing pad on a roof? Well, because we could do this in a day, we could go here, we could have so-and-so come, and like all these famous people that could come and visit us, and this big creative thing. And what was interesting was Brian probably my oldest ended up offering more ideas than David. But what we did was we decided when we were done that some of the things that we talked about, we didn't really need a helicopter landing pad on our roof to do those things, right? We could just go do those things. Might take longer because we can't fly in and out, but we could still go do them. So they actually sort of laid the groundwork for some of our upcoming trips and vacations that we did was because we were going to have this helicopter landing. We don't have one on our roof. We never have, and we probably never will. But it was, every idea just deserves to be heard and respected. And so if you can do that with your family and all ideas are just valued in the process, you can actually have a lot of fun, but you'll learn a lot about what's really ticking inside of the heartbeat of your kids too. And they'll get to learn that about you as well.
You know, that's true. And I'm sitting here thinking about, because you have 2 sons and I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. And I mean, we would spend some time talking and doing similar, but not probably as organized as yours, what you're talking about. And the thing is that I think in a relationship, women love to talk and they're expressive and they're emotional. And I don't find that all men want to get to that point. So what's beautiful is you've raised 2 sons how to communicate and share and listen.
Yep.
And be and allow them to feel it.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because David, my youngest, he'd come home from school, and most parents would go like, "How was school?" "Fine." And they can't get any, like, they're just really stretching to get information. David would come home and I'd be, "How was school?" "Well, let's see, at 8 o'clock we did this, and at 8:05 the teacher came in and she said this, and then at 8:10 we actually," and about like by about 9:30 I'm going, "Oh dear God, like, is this day ever going to end?" Right. But he loved to just, he would give me like a play-by-play thing, and I never wanted to complain about that, because I know a lot of parents would have cherished that. But there were times I just thought, "Oh dear Lord." I'm going to know, like, when he went to the bathroom next, so, but yeah, so they really do. And they, to this day, they know how to communicate. And obviously that becomes a generational thing then, because they carry that to their family as well.
So if parents, one tip during this trying time, there's all kinds of emotions that are flowing. There are parents, or you're just stressed out. You're worried about maybe the elderly parents. You're upset, don't know what to do. If you're one of those that doesn't believe in wearing a mask, you're still getting bombarded. If you're one of those that believe in wearing a mask, you're getting bombarded. We're not getting away from it. And then with kids being home all the time and trying to do what's right, and this fear that the media is putting out about what is going on. It's all driven by the media. And so, and I don't even know if these tests are even accurate. If no one is showing a symptom, are the tests accurate? But it shuts down things over and over again. So, and that's a whole other story we're not going to talk about. But the point is that there's a lot of stress. And if you understand energy, and you understand what's going on astrologically, and if you understand what's going on cosmo, and you understand the global energy, and you understand what's happening to the earth. And most people don't understand that, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. What you need to be aware of, the feelings are stronger than ever. They're up, they're down. You listen to something and it's blasting the government, the left or the right. It doesn't matter which one, and you don't know. Some of it you react to, some of it you don't. And we're all trying to figure out, what do we believe in? And so this is what you've got going on. You don't even know if kids are going to school, depending on where you live. And is it necessary? Well, it doesn't matter. This is what we're dealing with. And then you're dealing with people that aren't necessarily maybe working like they were. And you're not able to just go and vacation. You're not able to be around family gatherings. Now I'm doing my family gatherings. I'm not letting anything scare me off. But that's out there. And that's what we need to address today, is how parents and families can get through this. So one thing you're saying is, if you can learn to communicate, and kids have a chance to express themselves, and parents have a chance, that it doesn't have to be about the craziness in the world. You're just opening up the communication to care about that other person's day, to care about what they're going through. You're going to have people that are breaking down and crying. They're overwhelmed. They're feeling anxious just because of the energy of what is happening in the family, right?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're all facing the same challenges, and I think everyone's obviously looking at them in different ways, right? We get that choice.
Right.
We choose to respond. And so I know that some are in fear, and it actually brings me up to my next point, because every day we get up, we have a choice, and you're touching on a lot of it. We can choose a path of love, or we can choose a path of fear. And, if I stand on the path of love, in fact, when I make decisions, and right now we've had to make a lot of decisions, right? The first thing I'm asking, am I on a path of love or a path of fear? And if I can honestly say I'm on a path of love, then I can move forward with that decision. The other thing I sometimes do, and this is a little sidebar, but depending on what the decision's about, but sometimes I also will say, okay, now would I make the same decision if I were to take my ego, which sometimes might be sitting right in the middle of it, right? In terms of what are people going to think, or, does that, if I take that out, would I make the same decision? So am I on a path of love, and am I moving, without my ego sitting in the middle of this? And if I can make the same decision, then I know I'm making a good decision for me and for my family. And I think we that's, again, getting back to trusting in our own gut, right? And our own tuition of what feels right and good for us. But and I'll give you like a really simplistic story. But I have two friends, and this was a few years back, and both their kids were going to have to go from one middle school to the other middle school. And I got the opportunity to talk with each one of the kids at different opportune times. And I said to the one, I said, what do you think about the change over to middle school? You're going to have to go to a whole new school. And he says, I don't know. He says, what if I get a bad teacher and I'm not really like excited about it? And he goes, I just really like where I am, and I don't like, the change could be bad. And, it's like everything that could go wrong, right? This kid was focused on it. And then I talked to the other kid and I said, what do you think about going to middle school? And he's this new middle school. And he goes, oh, I think, he says, I think there's some really cool teachers over there, and I might get one of the best ones. And he goes, and there's so many new kids I'll get to meet, and I'll get new experiences. And actually their team that I want to be on is actually better than the one over here. I mean, like, so it was two choices, but if you looked at the moms, it was feeding from them. Right.
Yes.
And so those kids were taking on however the parents were portraying that.
Yeah.
And the parent that was saying, hey, new opportunity, new excitement, new friends, new teachers, new everything. It could be amazing time. Your life could be set on a path that you never even knew it was out there yet, because you get to make this shift and this change. Or you can paint the picture of, oh my God, you might get the worst teacher ever. And, I mean, it just.
Right. So you're exactly right. So it's the same thing with families.
Mm-hmm.
A mother is teaching her son or daughter, they're outside, there's a snake, and it's like, oh yeah. And they start talking in science about the snake, no fear, right? And then another mother goes out with her child, and it's like, I'm afraid of snakes. The child is going to probably grow up afraid of snakes, and the other child that isn't afraid of snakes never had it introduced to be afraid.
Right.
And so with COVID-19, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the ego. The ego is always trying to prove itself right.
Mm-hmm.
You're spinning in your wheels over and over and over again. That's what the fear is. Let's break it down for parents to understand. They're worrying. They're waking up in the middle of the night. They don't know how they're going to make it. They don't know what they're going to do. And you have to understand, you've got your children. You've got your family, and that energy is intermingling. It is actually affecting everybody. So if you wake up every day and say, am I going to let this virus, this pandemic scare me, or am I going to feel love today and just be in gratitude?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not different?
Well, and of course, being grateful is key. We're so blessed, and being able to stand in the energy of that feeling, at all times. And, I always say, like, the more that I could live in my joy, the more that my children could live in theirs. And it doesn't mean that we have to fake it till we make it, because, whatever, but whatever we need to do to ground ourselves, to stair step, to baby step, whatever we need to do to get back to our joy. Because if you think that your kids don't know, if you're trying to just fake like you're not, afraid, or you're fake the anger or whatever it is that you're feeling, they know it. They sense it. And so, sometimes the real work comes from what we have to do within ourselves, is to remember and to find that joy again, and to step out of that fear, and to set the ego aside, because sometimes once we've committed to a side of the the debate, right? That's like, now I've got to do everything I can to make sure that what happens to me, supports that thought process. And so we attract then, if we're in fear, we're just going to attract more things that are going to bring us fear. One simple thing, really simple thing to do, and I would just encourage everybody to do this regardless, is to turn off the TV. I mean, that was actually one of just turn off the TV, and step out of it. You'll hear the headlines. You'll know what's going on. It's not gonna go away. But obviously, the media is the biggest driver of a lot of this fear that's out there. And whatever we feed, whatever we give our energy and focus to, we strengthen. So if we're out there constantly worrying about or putting energy towards all the craziness that's going on out there, then we actually give more energy to it. The very thing that we don't want, we actually feed. And so turning off the TV, I think, is just one way. And the media does paint everything as though it's very divisive. It goes right down the middle. So it's like, I always use this example, like you can be pro-gun and pro-gun safety at the same time. Right? You can be for helping people in need, but still want to empower people at the same time. It doesn't mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it gets painted so black and white in terms of you're either on this side or this side. And really there's a lot in the middle where we have all this common ground that we could be sharing on. So one of the things I was going to just suggest as far as is turn off the TV, because you know what? It's energy in your house. And if you think your kids aren't hearing that too, you're wrong.
What about this?
Yeah. Well, the cell phone, right? Yeah. How do you stop that? But you get to choose what comes into your cell phone, well, you get to whether you turn the TV on or off too. But yes, this is another big thing, right? Obviously with the cell phone, because what's feeding into your phone. I mean, I will tell you, if you go out to my Facebook, anybody that posts up anything political, negative, hateful, whatever, they're gone. I mean, sometimes I snooze somebody if I think they just kind of like got off course a little bit. I snooze them for 30 days on Facebook, but if not, I just unfollow them. And so you won't find that in my feed. It doesn't come into my awareness.
Good. So you make sure you're keeping yourself where you need to be, because you're doing it to help yourself and
right.
Yeah.
If I want to be a part of the solution, the biggest thing that I can contribute to be a part of that solution is to stay in the energy of light and love. And so I ground myself in that. And obviously, when things do pass my way that aren't of light and love, then obviously I stay more grounded, because I feel like that's how I get to be a part of the solution. It's not by going out and voicing on either side of the equation. It's by standing. One time somebody gave me, Judy, a beautiful analogy of a hurricane swirling around us. And in the hurricane, obviously, you can be in all the chaos that's swirling around us every day, or you can choose to step into the center of it, because in the center, you can see all the way up through to the sky, into the blue sky, and to the sun. That's where the clarity is, right? Well, my family and the people that I think that are going to, if you want to find me, that's where I am. If you want to step into that space, you'll find me there, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm not aware of everything that's going on around me, but what I'm choosing every day is to get up and be a part of the solution.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. I know what you're saying. I will go and start investigating, because I have for years, I don't want to know this kind of stuff. But I think at the same token, I need to be educated. I need to be informed. But I have to decide on how much am I going to be sucked into it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, I can't do this. I have to back off and go do something. So I love the fact that you're very grounded and have boundaries. You're demonstrating boundaries. So we've gone over some of the best things is to learn to sit around with family to talk. Mm-hmm. You could play a game. You could have game pieces and spin it to see which family member goes first. What child goes first.
Right. Oh yeah. There's all kinds of ways to bring those conversations out. But I think if there are fears, it's not good to not acknowledge them. Everybody wants to feel. I mean, a lot of what's going on right now is because people haven't felt heard, right? So they're acting out in crazy ways sometimes to just feel heard. This is a funny story. My son, when he was little, we were at the grocery store, and there was an elderly man there, and he had kind of a, you know how your nose keeps growing. Well, he had a slightly large nose, and he went like this when he was checking out. And Brian, he was very young, says, "No, eat that boogie. Wipe it on your pants." And of course, I'm like, Brian, don't say that. Well, the guy just totally ignored Brian. So Brian came back a second time. "No, eat that boogie. Wipe it on your pants." And of course, at this point, the cashier who's checking him out she's kind of laughing or whatever. So he comes back a third time because this guy's just totally, he hears him, he hears him, but he's ignoring him. So finally, the third time, Brian yells it out really loud, "No, eat that boogie. Wipe it on your pants," and the guy turns around and glares at Brian, just glares at him. And Brian goes, "Ooh, I think he heard me." Now, he didn't say it again, right? Because he acknowledged he felt heard. But in some ways, even as adults, we all want to feel heard. And I feel like a lot of what's happening right now is because people haven't felt like they have a voice that was being heard. But so sometimes that has to, so if your kids are just being like we're not going to talk about it. It's like when there's a death in the family, nobody wants to talk about it. Like we're gonna push it down, we're gonna put it under a rug somewhere, and we're gonna act like it didn't happen. And for kids, that's really an unhealthy thing because they need to feel like they can express themselves. And so I used to tell my boys, you're never wrong for how you feel. It's just how you feel.
That's what I've taught my kids, that feelings are not facts, but it's okay. You need to express yourself. I'm all about communicating and getting to how you feel, because then you can change your mind. All of a sudden, it's like you just need to be heard. I
feel like you're heard.
You're so right about that. Okay, so let's go over what, we've gone over a lot of tips, a lot of things for parents. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about being grateful. So I think that's incredibly important to stay in that space of gratefulness. But I also think there's just something to bring home a little bit more. Like, we can never solve a problem in the energy of the problem. We can only solve a problem in the energy of a solution. And so when you're sitting down with your family, I think if you're always just painting the negative and the problem and whatever, but you're never stepping into that energy of the solution, you're going to be stuck there. And so looking for those ways to creatively figure out for your family what can allow you to move forward and do things. But also right now, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of negative things that are happening. Obviously, if someone's lost a loved one, it can be that fearful time around all of that. But there's also a lot of silver linings that are coming out of this. And I mean, I will just tell you, even with what I share and the 4 gifts that I get to share, I feel like right now they're being heard in a way they've never been heard before, right? Because families are looking for those new ways to navigate. They are spending more time together, and that's good. There was an article about right now in this time, kids are really getting behind in school. But somebody said, but what if they're, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, what if they're getting ahead in life? Because right now everybody's having to pitch together, and families are becoming more united. Not all, like in some, it's probably a really tough situation and it's not a positive, right? But for those that had some foundation in place, my guess is that foundation has gotten stronger. And, but we also have cleaner air, and we have we are spending more quality time with our kids and even family in some ways. Even if we're doing Zoom calls, we're spending time with family members that we weren't even spending time with before, and we're valuing those opportunities more. To go within, I think there's a lot more opportunity to go within. The number one reason that families would tell me they did not have a family meeting was because they didn't have time. Well, guess what? You got time, right? Because kids aren't running around doing all the sports, and a lot of stuff's not happening right now. So why not take this as just a beautiful opportunity to really make that connection?
You said something really important, that parents have made themselves so busy to have their child in every sport, do every activity, because they think that that is giving them a more well-rounded life. And COVID is making everybody stop and think about this and think, is that really what's important, that your child played 3 sports a year? Is
Mm-hmm.
that important that your child is in all these things? And then, well, we think if you keep your child busy, then they'll stay out of trouble. Well, you keep your child out of trouble by communicating,
Right.
by sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Being at the dinner table is a beautiful time to be sharing
Mm-hmm.
and taking the time to eat together, and not, parents are running around ragged and moms are overworked and dads. And it's honestly, I think it is, yeah, it's really sitting back and using this time to really decide what your values are.
Yeah. There was a beautiful video, you probably saw it, with a guy reading to his son about the great realization. Did you see that video? It's just a little short video, but
Yeah.
he's reading. It's sort of like a hindsight of 2020 about what's happening right now, but it's like years ahead, where he gets to, and the little boy's like, tell me that story again. But what he talked about was how during this time, there is such a beautiful coming together of family, that we never were taking the time to stop and appreciate. And so I think there's a deeper appreciation going on right now. And I actually think we're going to get through this. We've been in this long enough, that when we come out the other side of it, I don't think anything will ever be exactly the same way again. And some people go, oh, it's all changing. And you know what? That in some ways that's good, because we were all running around like crazy people, trying to fit everything in and thinking that you're right. Like, my kid plays 3 sports. Yeah, but and they're on that team, but is your family a team?
I agree. I think you're right. We have to look for the silver linings and the good things, and get to the basics of communicating and being allowed to hold hands and to hug. And I don't think that we should ever stop that.
No. I mean, that you bring up a really interesting point on that, because right now I have a 1-year-old granddaughter. She's too young to really know what's going on, and I'm kind of grateful for that, right, in some ways, because right now, to teach kids to be afraid of human interaction with other people, so that's a conversation that needs to happen. I mean, you need to be able to say, look, right now we're just in this really unique time, and here's all the good things that are going to come out of it, but here's some of the things that are just really strange in the middle of it, and talk about that, because right now it's not normal that you can't actually hug your grandparents, or or shake hands with somebody or whatever. And I mean, somebody said, well, it might be the new normal. I'm just like, I feel like, well, there's nothing normal about that, right? We're human beings, and we need that physical touch.
We really do need the physical touch. We do, and we have to find ways to get it. We do. Cheryl, we just have a couple more minutes. Please let everyone know how to find you and where you are and so forth on Facebook and your website.
Yeah, so couple places really, and I would love, and of course I'm sure the show will be out long term. So if you're seeing this and it's before September 1st of 2020, if you see it afterwards, it's still be amazing, but and we'll still welcome you for sure. But we have a group right now called Family Connection Challenge on Facebook, and we do all kinds of fun stuff there as far as running challenges. So you can find us under Family Connection Challenge. But as of September 1st, there will be a new gateway, and it'll actually cost money to be part of that community right now. So, but if you come in right now, you're forever part of that community, and you're like we're going to grandfather or grandmother, whatever that expression is, everyone in, so that you'll forever be a part of that community and foundation. So if you're seeing this and you want to jump on over there, otherwise it's still going to be a small amount to join. But we're going to be doing some phenomenal challenges in there, all the shows that we do on Kitchen Table Conversations. So if anyone is also looking for shows and content, obviously I do a show called Kitchen Table Conversations, and they can find me at the kitchentable-conversationshow.com for that information. Also, though, Unstoppable Connections is really my main website, because I do speak in companies as well, and because the 4 gifts that I share are good at any table. And so I actually do get the opportunity when well, I used to get the opportunity to speak at companies, but right now that's not happening. But it's Unstoppable Connections. So you can find me at unstoppableconnections.com as well. So, but would love to have anyone who wants to come over and be a part of that Family Connection Challenge group. We just did a fun family fitness challenge, and then we did we did a no duck quacking challenge, but we also did a family garden throwdown, 101 Aladdin wishes. We wrote a collective poem together. I mean, we're doing all kinds of really cool stuff in that group. So
Good.
Right now it's free. And for anybody who gets in now, it'll be free for life.
Good. Thank you. I also want to let everyone know that you can go to judyjewett.com and you can download a free report. Is on 5 tips to be balanced and centered. It might still say hacks. Hacks was a word that Mind Valley uses quite a bit, and the younger generation will understand. But I was changing it back to tips to be balanced and centered, and some really nice things that we need to do as a woman or as a man too. Whatever we can do to help, because this is what it's about: is getting centered, recentered every day. So please do that. You can also sign up for a complimentary strategy session for 30 minutes, and I'll give you some tips and zero in personally how to help you as a spiritual life coach and an intuitive and an intuitive energy healer. There's quite a bit I can help you to find that balance again, letting go of the anxiety, the trauma of all of this, and getting back to where you want to be, or give you the tips and tools to help you get there. So with that being said, I want to thank you very much. Please share what you're hearing with your friends and family so we can empower the world together.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you.